Hi there, and welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're tackling one of the biggest, most persistent misconceptions in public relations. If you're a beginner in PR, or even if you've been dabbling in it for a little while, you might think that PR success simply comes from having lots and lots of story ideas. You might think, if I just brainstorm 100 things to say, well, the media will have to pick up one of them. But in reality, most PR professionals don't actually struggle with coming up with ideas. What they really struggle with is deciding which idea to pitch first. And as we're going to see today, the order you choose can completely change whether your story becomes front page news or just gets totally ignored.
So let me ask you a question. Does your absolute best, most brilliant idea always get pitched first? Think about it for a second. Your gut instinct is probably to scream, yes, why wouldn't I lead with my best material? But actually, that's a classic beginner mindset. In the professional world, the real struggle isn't about the raw brilliance of an idea at all. It's about the strategic ordering of your pitches. Because in PR, order literally dictates success or failure. Timing, relevance, and strategy matter just as much as the idea itself. Choosing the wrong story at the wrong time can mean a phenomenal idea gets overlooked entirely. All right, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover why story order matters in PR, how PR pros evaluate story priority, what gets pitched first in practice, a common mistake, which is pitching everything at once, and finally, the better approach, sequencing your stories. Let's jump right into Section 1, Why Story Order Matters in PR.
Here is the hard truth. Not all stories have the same chance of getting picked up at the same time. Even your absolute strongest, most creative ideas will completely fail if they're pitched outside the current news cycle or editorial priorities. Imagine you have this amazing data report on holiday shopping trends. It's groundbreaking, beautifully designed, the whole shebang. But if you pitch that story in the middle of the summer, it's gonna flop. That is just bad timing. No journalist is writing about holiday shopping in July. But if you hold that exact same pitch and send it in Q4, right when journalists are frantically scrambling for holiday content, now that is good timing, and it's practically guaranteed to get coverage. Notice that the raw strength of the PR idea didn't change at all. Only the timing did. Sometimes when a story is pitched matters vastly more than what the story actually is.
Moving on to Section 2, How PR Pros Evaluate Story Priority.
So if timing is everything, how exactly do we choose what goes first? Well, let's dive into this checklist, which is about to become your new best friend. When PR pros have a giant stack of ideas on their desk, they run them through these 5 critical evaluation points: timeliness and relevance, the strength of the hook or angle, the data or proof available, the ease of journalist fit, and the speed of execution. Think of this as a master filter. Let's break down each one of these points quickly so you know exactly how to grade your own ideas. First up is timeliness and relevance. The very first thing a PR pro looks at is whether the story fits what is happening right now in the world. Journalists prioritize what feels urgent, current, and already connected to ongoing conversations. For example, pitching inflation trends is a solid idea, but pitching it right during a heavy news cycle where literally everyone is debating the cost of living, suddenly your pitch is essential reading. Timing completely changes whether the exact same idea feels completely irrelevant to a journalist or like a total lifeline they desperately need for their afternoon deadline. Next is the strength of the hook or angle. What's super interesting here is how a tiny tweak changes absolutely everything. You see, not all stories are equally compelling from a headline perspective. Journalists need an entry point. Consider the weaker hook here: new company launch. To be brutally honest, unless you're Apple, journalists rarely care about a new company just existing. But consider the stronger hook. Why demand for sustainable products is rising in 2026. Both pitches could be for the exact same eco-friendly startup, but the stronger hook offers a trend, a fresh insight, a real reason to care right now. A stronger angle instantly shifts the story from being totally ignored to being actively investigated.
The third filter is the data or proof available. At the end of the day, journalists are in the business of facts. Stories backed by solid data, research, or real concrete examples just feel significantly more credible and complete. A purely opinion-based idea, like a CEO just casually sharing their general thoughts, is definitely going to be a lower priority. But a story backed by fresh survey data, oh, that is high priority. Why? Because it's so much easier for the journalist to use. They don't have to just take your word for it. They have the hard numbers to back up the narrative. Without supporting evidence, even a genius idea is going to lose its spot in line. Number 4 is the ease of journalist fit. Smart PR pros ask themselves, how many different types of publications could realistically use the story? Some ideas are just very narrow. An update on a highly specific piece of manufacturing software is really only going to appeal to niche trade magazines. But consider a broad consumer behavior trend. That is a highly adaptable story.
You could pitch that to a lifestyle magazine, a daily business newspaper, and a general news outlet. The more flexible the story, the more easily a journalist can fit it into their section, which means it ranks way higher in the pitching order. And the final piece of the evaluation is the speed of execution. I'll be honest, this one catches a lot of beginners out. Readiness often determines timing much more than importance does. Let's say you have this massive data-heavy industry report that's going to change the world. Amazing, right? But it's currently stuck waiting for final legal approvals. Meanwhile, you have a short, ready-to-go written commentary from your founder about a major news event that just happened this morning. The ready-to-go commentary wins, hands down. It requires fewer assets, there are no pending approvals, and it can go out right this second. Speed is a massive factor in prioritization. Okay, section 3, what gets pitched first in practice? Let's look at theory versus reality. So, what actually happens when a PR pro sits down at their desk with a coffee on a Tuesday morning? Well, here is the reality check. PR pros do not pitch based on what their favorite idea is. It is a strict strategic calculation. Think about a timely trend backed by data. It has high relevance to today's news, and it's fast to execute. Now, contrast that with a long-term thought leadership piece. Sure, it's deep, it's profound, but it has much lower urgency and takes a really long time to get approved. In practice, the timely trend goes first, every single time. Even if you spent weeks pouring your heart into writing that thought leadership piece and you're emotionally attached to it, prioritization demands you detach your emotions. You pitch based on timing, journalist interest, and speed. The thought leadership piece is valuable? Absolutely. But it can wait. The trend cannot. Section 4, pitching mistakes. Specifically, the common mistake of pitching everything at once. Now that you know you shouldn't pitch based on emotion, I really need to warn you about a massive trap. I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. The most common mistake is pitching everything simultaneously. You have a great brainstorming session, you come up with 5 decent angles for your company, and you are so eager that you blast all 5 of them out to the media in the exact same week. Please, whatever you do, never do this. It is a terrible strategy, and let me show you exactly why it completely damages your brand. Let's look at the fallout here. When you pitch everything at once, you instantly create diluted focus. If you tell a journalist your company is an AI innovator on Monday and then a sustainability champion on Wednesday, they really don't know what you actually stand for. It leads straight to inconsistent messaging. And consequently, you get much weaker responses. A journalist looking at your email might think, why are they sending me so much random stuff? Are they just desperate for any coverage? It makes none of your pitches stand out. And from an internal perspective, it makes it incredibly hard to track what is actually working. If you do get a hit, was it the AI pitch or the eco pitch that secured the relationship? You just won't know. The scattergun approach always fails. Finally, Section 5, the better approach, which is sequencing your stories. So we avoid the scattergun. Instead of treating all ideas equally, PR pros meticulously sequence them over time for maximum efficiency and impact. First, you have your immediate pitches. These are your timely trends, the rapid-fire commentary we talked about earlier. They go out right now to catch the current news wave. Next, you have your short-term follow-ups. Once that immediate news wave settles down, maybe a week or 2 later, you follow up with a slightly different angle or a more tailored hook. And finally, you have your longer-term campaign planning. That's where you place that deep research paper or that thoughtful leadership piece. You intentionally hold it for a time when the news cycle is a bit quieter, so it can actually have maximum impact. You don't waste it in the middle of a chaotic news week. You sequence it. As this quote beautifully summarizes, when you get that sequencing right, your chances of getting consistent coverage increase significantly. PR isn't just about shouting your strongest story out into the void and hoping for the best. It's about knowing exactly when each specific story should be used as a tool to open a door. Getting the sequence right transforms PR from a game of pure luck into a reliable machine for consistent coverage. I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. I want you to literally look at your current pitch list today, or even just the ideas floating around in your head right now. Ask yourself, which story needs to jump to the front of the line because it's timely today? And more importantly, which story needs to wait? Mastering the patience to hold a truly good idea for the exactly right moment is what will genuinely make you a PR pro. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy pitching.